29 years of marriage destroyed in an instant. Father follows his wife to a restaurant, discovers she's cheating with her boss, and faces the ultimate betrayal from his daughters who helped cover it up. Last week, while my wife, 49F, was taking a shower, I, 50M, saw a notification pop up on her phone and went to open it, thinking it was one of our daughters, Maddie, 24F, and Alice, 26F, confirming what time their girls' dinner was. Instead, I saw an unsaved number saying, "I can't wait to see you," and then kissing emoji. I froze for a second. I clicked on the message and saw a short thread, mostly confirming dinner plans for that evening and how they missed each other and once a week just wasn't enough. I knew what I saw. 29 years of marriage down the drain. Hoping to catch her in a lie before she left the house, I texted both our daughters and asked them about girls' dinner. What happened next broke me to my core. Both girls confirmed the dinner and said they were excited. I couldn't believe it, not proud of what came next. I turned her location sharing on with me in her phone and let her leave. I followed her to a restaurant and lo and behold, neither daughter was there, but instead a man I knew was her boss. I was so heartbroken. Part of me was hoping I was just a paranoid freak and my daughters would be there happy to see me. But no, just my cheating wife and her AP. I took pictures of the two of them holding hands and kissing. I know I should have waited, but I couldn't help myself. I was so angry. As soon as I got in my car, I opened the group chat we had as a family, sent them all the photos and said, "Glad you're enjoying girls' dinner together." I then turned my phone off and drove to my brother's house and asked to stay the night. I woke up the next morning to over 40 texts and 20 voicemails. My wife went through the cheater's playbook of excuses. I didn't even listen to her voicemails. I was about to respond with, "I will be getting a divorce. I recommend a lawyer." But my brother stopped me. He told me to meet with a bunch of lawyers first and make sure she couldn't use them. Instead, I just sent the group chat a simple message. "I am physically fine, but need time. I will come home when I'm ready." I then muted my phone. I called different lawyers that looked to be the best in town that morning for appointments, met with all of them, and picked the one who looked ready to treat this as scorched earth as possible. Finally, after spending all day with lawyers, I looked through the messages and both my daughters were apologizing. My younger daughter, the daddy's girl of the two, was manic. She had texted me almost 50 times saying she never should have lied and hated it every time. Her boyfriend even reached out asking me to please reach out to her, that he didn't know what was going on, but that she was on the verge of a panic attack. "Maddie, I love you, but please understand that what you've done has hurt me deeply. I need you to give me space." I sent it and within seconds got a, "Okay, I'm so sorry. I never should have helped. I'll never forgive myself. I love you too." I didn't respond. Alice was different. We always had a good relationship, but she was a mama's girl through and through. She said she was sorry, but that I shouldn't throw away a good marriage because of one mistake. This made me furious. "Alice, this isn't a mistake. This is a betrayal from my whole family. Please don't reach out again until I make first contact." She never responded, but I know she showed it to me STBX because she started saying that I shouldn't take this out on Alice. I never responded. I'll never talk to her again except through lawyers. This all happened 5 days ago. I'm still with my brothers and can't contain my feelings. I cry every morning and most of the day. I oscillate between complete debilitating sadness and all-consuming anger. Losing my wife will be hard enough, but how do I ever look at my children again? How do I even begin to forgive them? Alice is supposed to get married in the fall. I've been paying for almost everything. Now I'm probably not going to go. I don't even know how to move forward. I am completely destroyed. A passionate affair turns into a nightmare. Chef becomes obsessed with a 19-year-old server, leading to drug abuse, infidelity, and dangerous encounters with strangers. The year is 2019. I just left my executive chef position at a hotel and started a general manager position at a small-town restaurant. At some point, I hire her as a server. She's 19, vibrant, energetic, beautiful, and a bit flirty, especially with me. We maintain a casual, friendly relationship for some time. Then one day she invites me to go fishing with her on the weekend. I love fishing, and I secretly adored her. I couldn't resist. We had a nice date out on the river fishing. We didn't catch much, but we drank some beer and had a good time. Later that evening, I took her to a Mexican restaurant, and we had margaritas and tacos. Afterwards, I took her back to my work, which was directly across the street from where we're eating. I didn't want to go far because we had been drinking. We f***ed right in my office. I had the CCTV footage for the longest time, but at some point, she got a hold of my phone and deleted it, so that kind of we did a whole whirlwind romance thing. I was instantly infatuated with her. Besides being extremely attractive to me, she was so fun and a joy to be around. I loved her energy and enthusiasm for everything, even the most mundane things. I went over to her house several times and met her family. It was kind of a shithole, but I felt welcome over there most of the time. In a short amount of time, I wound up getting her on my phone plan and renting an apartment with her. I later got her a car. I got invested way too quickly. I still had my own place, but it was an hour or so away. I found it easier to crash right there with her as it was close to where we both worked. Skipping ahead a few months, I caught her cheating on me in this apartment I was renting for her. Like WTF, lol. How I found out: condoms in her bathroom garbage can that I knew weren't mine because I wasn't using any. I confronted her. She denied. I dropped it for a while. A short time later, she's trying to let an old friend stay with her for a while. I tried to play it cool, but I knew. I wound up getting the guy alone on the balcony one night. We drank and talked. Anna came up, that's her name, BTW. I made him aware of our relationship. He evidently had no idea and admitted that they were having when I wasn't around. I thanked him for his honesty. We traded numbers. He warned me off in saying that this was sorta just how she was. He was gone the next day, never to be seen again. I didn't listen to him. I confronted her once again, and we had this whole knockdown, drag-out argument about it. She eventually copped to it and promised to stop. Never again. I love you, yada yada. Spoiler alert, it didn't end, it got worse. Paranoid now, I started secretly getting on her phone. It was way worse than I ever thought. She was on seeking arrangements, old dudes for money, basically. I sabotaged her in many of these relationships, but she still just wouldn't stop. And she didn't break up with me either. It was weird. At this point, I sort of lost it. I was already drinking a lot because she drank, and that was something we did together. But at this point, I started drinking more. I wound up getting a DUI and just spiraling out over all of this BS. I lost my job. I went to jail for 30 days, which seemed like forever. I thought when I got out, I'd finally be free of her. But there she was, leaning against my car at 12:30 a.m. on the night I got out. We hadn't spoke the whole time I was in, so I was completely floored to see her there. We had this great big coming to Jesus chat, and our relationship began its renaissance. But a few weeks later, she was at it again. At this point, I'm just like, look, if this is what you're going to do, let me be a part of it. She agreed, and we started meeting random guys to We often used Tinder, but later graduated to seeking arrangements. I knew she was still using that on the side anyway. Sometimes she got money out of these, and when she did, she shared with me. I was starting to get into it. I was starting to like it, sharing what I had and having her afterwards. IDK, it was kinda hot. Or maybe I just had Stockholm Syndrome, LOL. Not long after this is when I found out she was smoking meth. This was about a year into our relationship. I don't think she was doing it the whole time she was seeing me. I think an old girlfriend of hers reintroduced her to it. She then introduced it to me. I didn't like it at first. It didn't seem to do much for me. I had been an opiate guy in the past, but this was way different. It eventually grew on me, and that's when the real craziness began. We were spending every night in hotels, literally just all day and night. We would invite strangers over to her, and I would watch, film, sometimes join in, but I'd always have her afterwards. It drove her wild when I went down on her right after she had just been by a stranger, and I love that. After several months of that sort of thing, funds inevitably began to dry out. I didn't have a job anymore, remember? At some point, she ran off with one of her dates. I was devastated, but I used this time to start putting myself back together. I got a new chef job at a hospital, and things were starting to get better for me. A few months later, here she comes back. Me, unable to resist, fell right back into her. We went back to in hotels all night. It was at this point I really started to get into the whole filming aspect and took a lot of videos of her with other guys. It was like this fun game we just couldn't stop playing. Then one day she disappeared. Without saying a word, she moved away to another state. I found out later that she ran off with her dealer. I tracked her down, and we had a few more fun nights, but he eventually found out, and at that point, I was done. I was not going to keep driving 6 hours to fuck her in a hotel room while she was seeing and lying to someone else. At this point, I felt the relationship had run its course. I was finally done. At this point, I slowly started to phase the ice out of my life. I didn't have the same connections as she did, so I had a harder time getting a hold of it anyway. I had a little more fun with a couple of rebound girls, then eventually I quit for good. Then I picked up all the pieces and started putting my life back together. I found out a year or so later that her and her new boyfriend got arrested for trafficking. I have their mugshots. That was satisfying of NGL law. From trust to betrayal, the unraveling of my relationship with Sarah, who chose to believe her male best friend's lies, leading to shocking discoveries about her deceitful past. Back in 2022, I was in a relationship with a girl named Sarah. We were really close, but there was always one issue that bothered me: her male best friend. I've always had a thing against this male best friend dynamic, and Sarah, unfortunately, seemed to listen to him more than she listened to me. As a naturally possessive guy, I tried talking to her about it several times, but she never really got where I was coming from. One day, everything fell apart. Her best friend accused me of something I never did, cheating on her with another girl. Sarah was furious and called me, hurling accusations accusations without even giving me a chance to explain. I was in complete shock because, at the time of this so-called cheating, I was out with my family at a dinner. I even had pictures to prove it. I told her I'd show her evidence, but she didn't care. Before I could even explain myself, she blocked me on everything. Thanks to her so-called best friend, my relationship was suddenly over. But I wasn't going to just sit there and accept being framed for something I didn't do. I couldn't reach her directly, but I had her home address, so I decided to send her a letter with screenshots and pictures from that night, proving I was with my family and not with anyone else. After sending the letter, I got a call from a mutual friend who knew both Sarah and me well. He told me something that shocked me to my core. Sarah was now dating her male best friend. I was devastated. I had been with her for 8 months, and she believed this guy over me without a second thought. But what could I do? I was blocked from all communication, and my relationship was over. But that's when things got interesting. Sarah received the letter and immediately started calling and messaging me. I wasn't replying to any of it. Then at college, she showed up and was practically begging me to talk to her. She cried, apologized, and admitted she made a huge mistake. She wanted me back. As much as I still had feelings for her, I told her straight up that I couldn't be with someone who didn't trust me, who chose to believe someone else over me. After that, I walked away. The next day, I saw her in the college canteen, and guess who showed up? Her male best friend, the same guy who ruined everything, was there begging for her forgiveness. But what happened next was pure gold. Sarah slapped him, right there, in front of everyone. I swear his face turned red from the impact. It was the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. Now, the sad part is that Sarah suffered too, even though she was misled. So I decided to stay friends with her. To this day, we're still close friends, and she trusts me more than anyone. I've even heard through the grapevine that she still has feelings for me, which has left me a bit confused about what to do next. But hey, at least that slap was epic. And let me tell you, stay cautious about those best friends. Sometimes they're the ones who end up ruining everything. I confronted Kenny about everything. He apologized and admitted that after Sarah left me, the two of them got intimate multiple times over the span of just 3 days. But Sarah had told me she hadn't done anything more than kiss him. So here's lie number 1. At this point, I felt like something wasn't adding up. As Sarah is currently in her home country, I decided to call her mom to get some information. Her mom and my family have known each other for a long time, so I figured she would be honest with me. And here's where things took a turn. Her mom told me that, yes, they were in their home country, but Sarah wasn't there. Sarah was actually on a trip to Paris with some friends. Shocking, right? Sarah had been lying to me from the beginning. And there's more. Kenny also mentioned that during our relationship, Sarah had been cheating on me with multiple guys, something I never suspected. Now, I don't fully trust Kenny, but her mom's information about the Paris trip confirmed that Sarah has been dishonest. Sarah hasn't been answering my texts or calls. She claims she was in her home country because of a family emergency, but that was clearly a lie. At this point, I'm certain she's been lying all along, and I suspect she was cheating on me throughout our relationship. She even told me she hasn't dated anyone for the past 2 years, but now I'm starting to believe that was just another lie. Now I've made up my mind. I'm going to move on and find someone better, someone who's honest and trustworthy, but when Sarah comes back, you can bet I'll be confronting her about all of this. Employees look down at me, not knowing my family owns the company. A journey from humble beginnings to standing up for myself in my parents' waste management business. I'm 22 years old and just graduated fresh from college. Before I started applying to different companies, my parents made it clear that I was going to work for their company and hopefully run it in the future when they retire. My parents own a huge waste management service company and have become really successful. They decided that I needed to learn about the family business from the ground up, which meant that I had to do a lot of dirty work. My dad gave me different tasks throughout the week. Some days I was with the crew on the trucks rolling out to collect bins from all over the city. Other days I was at the recycling center, learning how they sort materials and seeing what happens next. I grew to appreciate the workers there and admired them. The people I worked with didn't know who I was, and I had no plan of telling them. I wanted them to treat me without any special treatment, and I wanted to experience everything from scratch. Everything went well for the first few weeks until I started getting treated like complete shit. I found myself doing most of the work throughout the day, and sometimes other employees would tell me to make sure the bins were lined up straight. I didn't mind the work, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting a little aggravated by doing their jobs. I did this for months until my breaking point came on a rainy day. That day we were short-staffed and the workload was heavy. I couldn't sleep that night and came to work already tired. Not to mention, I ended up getting drenched and started getting fed up with being treated as the company's pack mule. When we started wrapping up, one of the senior workers, Ron, threw his share of the remaining tasks at me. He told me that he had to leave early and that I should handle it because I was new to the job and he was my senior. I got fed up with it and told him that I wouldn't do it and that he should do it himself. He looked at me, confused, as if I disrespected him. He smirked at me and told me that management was not going to like it if they heard him saying bad things about my work. I looked at him and told him to go to management because I didn't care. I even told him that I would go to management with him if he wanted,